Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD. You want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Wednesday, August 21st, that we'll be taking a look at tonight's 8-game MLB DFS slate on DraftKings. So hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. Give me those thumbs. You know how much I like those in the morning. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Remember, later today, 5 p.m. Eastern. Grinders Live. Dean and the guys will take a more detailed look at the slate, and that's followed by Crunch Time for all your last-minute questions and updates before the slate starts. But joining me today is the guy behind the bat, the Blitz. If there's a projection system that starts with a B out there, it's Derek Carty. And it's obviously wildly underpriced, as it shouldn't be, for the dog days of summer for baseball season. But we got football coming up in 2 weeks, so I know people are like itching for NFL. Do we got details on the Blitz and how people could find the NFL projections you do?
Yep, the Blitz is for sale. RotoGrinders.com/the-Blitz. It's pretty good. I would recommend it.
Right, and obviously you get 18 weeks of the regular season, right? So that includes also the showdown slates, right? So you get the Sunday showdown, Monday, Thursday. You know, then if there's a Saturday slate or whatever, you get the playoffs, right? So you're talking about. You could use the Blitz for obviously the Monday, Thursday, full week, the season-long, week-to-week projections, everything like that. You get all the stacks pages and access to the Blitz chat and Discord and everything. So once you add that all up, 18 weeks of main slates, plus like 3 major showdown slates, right? Even though there's the little showdown slates on Sunday or whatever.
Like the Thanksgiving and the Christmas and the Saturday, yeah.
Right, 4 slates, about 4 slates a week times 18 or so, because you also get the Thanksgiving one there that throw in there. So you're talking about 80 plus the playoffs, maybe 100 total slates, maybe 100 total slates. And so for 100 total slates, I'm assuming Carty, that I mean when you divide it by whatever it should, I mean, you know, for like $20-$30 a slate, right? I mean, like $2,000 or $3,000 is a pretty good deal for the Blitz. It's not $2,000 or $3,000.
It's not. Certainly should be, but no, you can get it for $450 for the season. It's too cheap. We all know it's too cheap. But that's what we do.
And you also just for the people that may not be playing all DFS, you have statistical projections that you could use for props and pick 'em, and it's all available CSV download. You could just bring it into Excel, or put it into anything you want. Here you go. It's updated daily, if not multiple times daily, especially come Saturday and Sunday. So you use my advice when it comes to the Blitz. It's very similar to my advice with the bat. Okay. So the bat, my advice is always, get your props before Carty wakes up, and then on every day, and then get your NFL props in before Carty wakes up on Wednesday or so, like Wednesday morning or so, right? It's something like that, because a lot of times, you update, you have your initial run on like Tuesdays, right? And then you'd make your like kind of first manual adjustments on Wednesdays, and then all the props move, and then by Friday, maybe there's some value on the board, but it's off by 5 or 10 yards, and I'd rather take advantage of it early.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. The earlier, the better. For pretty much anything, unless there's like a weird, uncertain injury situation that we have to wait on or whatever. But for the most part, that early, and people who have been using it the last few years have done very well.
I've not had a losing NFL season on props and pick'em in 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the MLB slate. We got 8 games. Kansas City's the only team with a 5+ run total. I don't think we have much weather situations on today's slates. I don't think we have to worry about that. We have a bunch of teams with under a 4. I mean, it doesn't look like there's a ton of offense on tonight's slate, but pitching is headlined by 10.5K Jack Flaherty versus Seattle, who are a high strikeout team, but they do have some power. Probably going to be like 50% owned on this slate. Can you make a case outside of ownership that the pitcher that has a 7.5 strikeout prop, which is 2 more than any other pitcher on the slate, you should be leading most of your lineups on DraftKings. Being you have to play 2 pitchers, that a lot of the combinations you're going to be making today are Flaherty plus someone else.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, he's the top guy. But I don't think he's like so far above everyone else that at 50%, you have to have him in all your lineups. There are other guys you can play that are, I don't know, close to Flaherty, almost as good, viable, that are going to be a lot lower owned. So I don't know. Do you feel like Flaherty's a guy that you're going to have in like all your lineups?
I mean, I'm playing 3 lineups, so I mean, it could be in all 3 of my lineups, but I get your point. I mean, we take a look at it. We have the bat projections up on the screen, which is an add-on to our RotoGrinders combo premium membership. You'll get lineup HQ, you get our ownership projections, you'll get Cheese's $1 million musings for baseball, plate IQ tool, expert survey, all of our premium baseball content. Get the combo premium subscription. Click on that link in the description. Get $40 off your first month. But we're showing it on the screen. I think that a detailed way, another way of looking at your take. Like, you're not saying Flaherty's bad. You're not saying that like he's the top projected pitcher on the slate. But we have a bunch of pitchers that project for maybe 2, 3, 4 points from a mean perspective lower. That, like, if Flaherty goes out and has a good game, maybe gives up a home run, maybe strikes out 7 in the process and gives you like 22 points, maybe it's not necessary. Maybe it's like, okay, a Flaherty lineup could win the GPP, but if he scores 22, 24, or whatever, we have a bunch of pitchers on the slate that could also score 18 to 26 points, that if you just get 2 of them, you may not need Flaherty. Now, if Flaherty goes out and strikes out 11, 7 innings and gives up no earned runs, scores 36 points, you're probably in trouble, especially at 50% ownership. But I think the point is that we got, at cheaper price points, we got Nola at 9,200 against Atlanta. We got Cortez 8,900 against Cleveland. Then we got Max Fried 8,500 against Philadelphia, and Ryan Pepio 8,300 against Oakland. We still have guys like Gibson at 7,800, Tyon at 8,400. And then we got some cheap stuff. I mean, I'm not excited about like the rest of those pitchers that I named. Like, I'm not excited about playing. Like this Braves Phillies matchup, the total is low. The total is like 7.5. They both have under a 4 implied run total, but these are 2 teams that can hit the ball. And I'm not convinced that Aaron Nola is really a high strikeout pitcher anymore. And I'm also not convinced that Max Fried is necessarily the same Max Fried that he was earlier in the season. I'm typically a Max Fried guy. I tend to play. Max Fried doesn't get as much ownership as he should historically. And I think it's going to be even less against the Phillies lineup, even though some of their best hitters are lefties. So that does help. But, the walks being up really concerns me, because when Philly has power, you're going to walk 1 or 2 guys on base and then give up a home run. That's the start. I like targeting stacks against pitchers that walk batters more than ones that like can't strike anyone out, is because the more people that you put on base, the more ceiling potential your hitters get. So can you sell me on Nola or Fried today?
Yeah, I mean, the case is, sure, they're not Flaherty. Maybe they don't have the same strikeout stuff, but I don't think Nola's a low strikeout guy by any means. Neither is Fried. and he's efficient. Fried has a long leash. He's allowed to go deep into games, has good control, doesn't walk a lot of guys. Complete game shutouts are on the table. I feel like for both of these guys, Fried especially. You're getting a price discount. You're getting a significant ownership discount on Flaherty. I don't know. I think that's the case. Like, I don't think these guys are a lot worse. I don't think their ceiling is that much lower. And you're getting discounts with two of the levers.
How about someone like Cortez? I trust strikeouts more with Cortez. He's facing Cleveland. Cleveland is not the highest strikeout team at all. The wind is a little bit blowing out. I mean, if we take a look at the weather here, I don't think it's going to matter that much. Wind's out to right center at 10 miles an hour, whatever. But it is Yankee Stadium, and that's a much more of a hitter's ballpark. So I tend to like Yankee pitchers away from Yankee Stadium. Is Cortez kind of in that same bucket with Nola and Fried of like, sure. I mean, he could go 7 innings and strike out a bunch or whatever, but I mean, he's less than Flaherty. I mean, I think we can both admit that Flaherty is the top pitching option on the slate. It's just, Flaherty maybe shouldn't be 2.5 times owned than every other pitcher on the slate.
Right. That's kind of all it is, I think, is just he shouldn't be as much higher owned as he's going to be. That's really kind of the whole case. It's a game theory case more than anything else. So yeah, that's what it comes down to.
Right. And then chat, Webb is a top play. I don't know. Logan Webb is not on the slate. Right.
Yeah.
We're looking at the main slate on DraftKings. So it's 8 games tonight. So no, you can't play Webb. So maybe he's a top play on the other slate, but not this slate. Is there anyone else? I mean, even at any price point. I mean, we could talk about Mitch Spence maybe.
Yeah, Spence would be the guy.
6,500 against Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Is it necessary? Like, is Mitch Spence like for 6,500? I mean, I guess it's useful. I mean, we got some expensive pieces like the Dodgers.
Like, if you want to get a Dodger stack, you're going to have a hard time doing like Flaherty, Fried, or even like Fried Nola kind of thing, and getting like a full good Dodger stack with. Yeah, Spence opened some stuff up. 6,500. He's got a good matchup. I have no problem mixing in some Spence today.
How about like Yariel Rodriguez against Cincinnati? I mean, there's a lot. It seems like there's a whole bunch of pitchers kind of like in this range, like Kyle Gibson at 7,800.
Yeah,
I mean, 8,400 is not like cheap.
Part of the issue is just like ceiling with some of these guys. Like Gibson really doesn't have the strikeout stuff. Yariel usually isn't allowed to go very deep into games. I can see having a little bit of them, but I do worry a little bit about the ceiling.
How about Ryan? I mean, we didn't talk about Ryan Pepio. He's 8,300. He's 200 cheaper than Fried. I mean, you like him. I mean, he's at Oakland. Obviously, that's a great ballpark. He has this. I mean, low key, he is the second highest strikeout prop on tonight's slate.
Yeah, no, he's great. Like, he's a good pitcher with good stuff. Facing a team that can strike out, pitcher's park. No, I like Pepio every bit as much as I like Fried or Nola or maybe more. He's outside of Flaherty. He's one of the next guys I'd be looking at.
Right. You see the last 2 starts, at least he sometimes has walk problems. And we had a whole bunch of starts where he did. I mean, he still strikes people out, but hate those walks. I mean, I talked about it just before. Like, I get nervous once you start walking 1 or 2 guys on base, and then power hitters start coming up. But I think Pepio is in play. But to recap pitching, I think I would consider in my buckets, my A, B, and C buckets, I think Flaherty is the only A bucket pitcher on the entire slate. And now this is not adjusting for ownership, but just he's the top pitcher. And then I think Cortez, Fried, Pepio, those may be the B bucket pitchers, and then everyone else that we mentioned are kind of like C's. Like me personally, for 3 lineups in like single entry 3 max, like I typically don't play the C's. C's are like, 20 max, 150 max, like, or if you want to be differentiated and you want to play it in single entry 3 max, like, you're not crazy. You're not crazy for playing them, but I'm just not in my smaller field stuff. I think all the other ones. Is there any other pitcher that you think is reasonably playable that you're not crazy that we haven't mentioned?
I mean, not really. You can squint and make a case for certain guys, Nick Martinez or whatever, but I don't know. I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, I'm not going to be playing Nick Martinez and his 3 strikeouts at 6,300 at Toronto today, but everyone else can if they want. I mean, I'm not going to do it. Okay, so let's talk about stacks. A, B, C, D, and F. Do the tiers here in the morning. We got 16 teams. And remember, this is all ownership adjusted. The pitching one, we've just gone through the breakdown. So ownership adjusted. And these are 5-man stacks on DraftKings. So can you play 2 guys from a team on the DT? Yeah, sure, of course. But we're talking about 5-man stacks. And obviously salary makes a difference, lineup construction, all that type of stuff. So I'm looking at the BatX stacks projections page, which I normally do when I build my lineups. And we have a bunch of I mean, I don't think there's that much offense. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring slate. There's a whole bunch of teams in like the mid-tier. So we're going to see a lot of BCs and Ds. But we've got to put someone in the A, someone in the F, because we're not going to top out like that. The top projected team that you have on the slate, like this is the bat is going to be fairly contrarian today. Just from like human heuristics. The Dodgers project 5 points better than any other team as an average 5-man stack. Very expensive. And they're facing Logan Gilbert, who I typically am not like stacking against.
Right.
I don't think the Dodgers, I think the Royals are going to be like, I think the Royals and the Yankees are going to be the 2 most owned teams on the slate. And if you play the Dodgers, what pitchers? You're not playing Flaherty in that lineup, probably. But the Dodgers have a 4.22 implied run total. So, Carty, can you explain to me why the Dodgers project like 5 points better than the Royals today?
I mean, the simple explanation is they're the Dodgers and the other team is the Royals. Like, yeah, the Royals have a better matchup. They're against Cueto. Dodgers are against a pretty good pitcher in Gilbert. But I think the Vegas total is too low for one thing. The bat has the Dodgers projected for almost, I think about 3/4 of a run more than Vegas or something like that. So that's going to be right away what you're looking at. Like you said, they're not going to be that high owned. And so when they project this much better at lower ownership, I think they have to be an A-tier team.
But then we have the Royals and the Yankees, and the Yankees are facing Joey Cantillo, who, as of now, is a creative player to me. Maybe you could tell me about Joey Cantillo.
No,
and the Royals are facing a guy that I didn't think was even pitching anymore. Is Johnny Cueto come out of retirement? What's going on here? I understand why the Royals would be high owned. Johnny Cueto, maybe 10 years ago was a good pitcher, but I don't know. I mean, Johnny Cueto hasn't. I mean, when's the last time Johnny Cueto pitched? A year ago? I mean, like I legitimately thought he retired.
I thought he did too until I saw he's made 13 starts in the minors this year. Got injured about, a little ways through, but he's made 4 since he got injured. He's fully built up. Like, they should be able to let him throw 100 pitches if they want him to. And he's not good anymore. I don't have a problem with the Royals, obviously, against Johnny Cueto. I think they're great. But if they're the highest owned team, I mean, I don't know. I don't think they're like far and away the best team on this slate by any means.
I think Bobby Witt's going to be pretty popular at shortstop, right? So I mean, if you're playing a Royal stack, you're playing Bobby Witt, but I mean, I don't think I would play Bobby Witt by himself as a one-off.
Yeah.
Because the Royals are going to be so popular as a stack. So does that make the Yankees bet? So the Yankees against Joey Cantillo, but the Yankees, I mean, if you're going to play Soto and Judge, good luck playing Jack Flaherty in your lineup. But as we see often, as Soto goes, Judge goes. I mean, like it's hard to play a Yankee stack and like not play these guys. Same thing. Imagine playing a Dodger stack and go, well, I'm not going to play Ohtani or Betts in my then you're not really playing the Dodgers today. You're playing, the other part of the Dodgers lineup. So the Royals at least, are affordable on the bottom end, right? You got Witt. Like you can play Witt and then you don't need to play Perez. You don't need to play Pascantino. You don't need to necessarily play all the main guys. The Yankees are a little bit tougher price-wise. So if you had a choice between if the Yankees were twice as the Yankees were like 8% owned in average, and the Royals were 12% owned. So like not half the ownership or whatever. Which team would you rather play? And we obviously say that the Dodgers are going to be lower owned than that, so they're going to go in the A tier. But do you think the Yankees are going to be lower enough owned than the Royals that they should also go to the A tier?
I don't think I'd put the Yankees in the A tier. I think I'd have a tough time deciding between Yankees and KC. I think on balance, they wind up pretty similar for me. I wouldn't disagree with anyone who wants to put them in the A tier, but I think when you consider their price, that kind of offsets a little bit the lower ownership you're going to get on them relative to KC.
Okay, the next two teams stack projections may surprise you. Now, obviously, right now, after the just let's be clear. From the Royals all the way down to the bottom team on the entire slate, it's a range of like 7 points. So we're not. This is not like oh well, we're still in the top tier. It's like the difference between the like we're talking about like we're moving like half a point at a time down the ladder, right? It's not like very clear delineations. But the next two that are up here very similar. These are two teams stacks that raw points, average 5-man stack, project about the same. I mean, within like a third of a point of the Royals and the Yankees. One of them is the Braves against Nola, which they're the Braves. Okay, I get it. Okay, right? I'm not going to try to stack against Nola, but okay, I get the Braves. Then we have the Mariners against Jack Flaherty, which if the Mariners are the third highest projected stack on the slate, Flaherty's going to be a 50% owned pitcher. Normally, these situations, I'm putting that team in the F tier going, well, you're not crazy for playing against the 50% owned pitcher. But I mean, they start off in the C tier just by projection alone based on the bat. Are we going to say that even though Flaherty is an A bucket pitcher, that the Mariners should also be with the Royals and the Yankees in the B tier?
Honestly, I'd go as far as to put him in the A tier, given how high on Flaherty is going to be and how well they project. You want to put him in B, that's fine, but I would put him in A tier today. I think they're going to have no ownership. They're not that expensive. You're going to get massive leverage off of the highest owned pitcher on the slate. And it's not like this is a bad offense. It's not like we're telling you, oh yeah, stack the Nationals or stack the White Sox against a high owned pitcher. Yeah, the Mariners strike out a lot, and that's why Flaherty projects well. But they're a decent offense, and they have power. I really like them today, all things considered.
I think if you're going to play a lineup where, let's say you play a Dodgers stack and you can't afford Flaherty, that seems like even if you don't play the Mariners as a 5-man stack, I could see playing Cal Raleigh one-off, a Jorge Polanco one-off, a Julio Rodriguez one-off. Play the Mariners as one-offs in non-Flaherty lineups because Flaherty could not be the winning pitcher could give you 18 fantasy points as a pitcher, and still give up 2 home runs. I mean, like Flaherty is still a fly ball pitcher that's prone to walks and home runs.
Yeah.
But he could also, obviously, from a 5-man stack perspective, he could also strike at 11 in the process, and the whole 5-man stack doesn't get there. So I'm tempering my expectations on the Mariners, but I don't think I mean, I think you're not even close to crazy for playing the Mariners today.
No.
When Flaherty is going to be 50% owned. So like I'm fine. I'm not going to put him in the A tier. I'm not kamikaze crazy. I'm contrarian, but I'm going to put him. I'm going to put him in the B tier. But how about the Braves versus Nola? Is that a very similar situation where, yeah, I don't think Nola is going to be that owned, but I'm not sure how many people are going to really be playing the Braves today against the name value. And I mean, it's not like Nola projects poorly. He projects okay. That do the Braves end up? I mean, they project what? I'm taking a look at this. They project a half a point lower than the Yankees at maybe half the ownership of the Yankees. How do the Braves not end up in that tier as well?
Well, I mean, that's where I would have them. But then I would much rather have Seattle than Atlanta because you're getting so much more leverage off of Flaherty. That's why I'd have Seattle A tier. If you're going to put Atlanta B, like Seattle and Atlanta, you much rather have Seattle.
Okay, so you convinced me, Carty. Right, I can't put Atlanta here and not put Seattle. Okay, people will watch this later, right, throughout the day. That's the reason we don't talk about like the early slate. Tomorrow we will, because that's like on the main slate. Because this show is meant for for people to watch even 5 hours from now. So yeah, so just a little disclaimer on the Seattle. It's like, oh, Seattle's a top stack. Oh, they're facing Flaherty. You people are crazy. Like, we're playing DFS people. We're not. Most likely Flaherty does well and the Mariners fail, but
Yes.
there's so much leverage to be had with the projection on the Mariners that if Flaherty does not do well or not do well enough, like, you're getting all these guys at way too low ownership for their potential. So let's continue down the ladder. We got these are the types of teams that I think are going to be like more owned than like the Braves against Nola, or the Mariners against Flaherty, and stuff like that. The Angels against Michael Lorenzen, and the Angels are cheap. The Reds against Yariel Rodriguez, and the Cardinals against Tobias Myers, because these are like pitchers that no one's playing, right? Right. So it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to stack against Lorenzen, Rodriguez, Myers. Like, these aren't good pitchers. So where are we putting the Angels, the Reds, and the Cardinals?
I think I'd probably have Reds and Cardinals C tier. Angels, I can see the case for making them B because of how cheap they are. And they don't project like that much worse. But yeah, that's probably where I'd have them.
Right. Because the Angel, like, if you're making a Flaherty lineup, an Angel stack is pretty easy. You can play a 5-man Angel stack with Flaherty, with Fried, still get one good one. You could play Ohtani in that lineup possibly, right? Because we got some like $2,500 guys that you could kind of throw in. So I think your concern about the Angels is more of a ceiling. I mean, they did well last night, but
yeah,
like they also may be like the team du jour that may go like they're like the what I call an optimizer team. Like, they project well enough point per dollar that when you run the stuff through lineup HQ, that you may get a lot more of them with Flaherty, like Flaherty, Cortell's lineups. And since so many people use that methodology, next thing you know, the Angels are like twice as owned as you thought they would be, right? So it's not like you're getting like, yeah, I'm putting them down in the C tier because I get it. But I think people may be people that don't want to pay down a pitcher may struggle to find like cheap bats and cheap 3-mans. And I think like maybe the Angels, and we'll talk about the Angels and Blue Jays kind of fit that bill as those teams that like have those cheap enough guys that they tend to stick together. So how about the next? I mean, we're going right down the line. So these are now teams that are like a point lower than that, right? So we got the Phillies against Max Fried, and the Phillies are expensive to stack. And we also got the Brewers against Kyle Gibson, and they're no cheap. They're not that cheap either. Is Fried going to be high enough owned that the Phillies get bumped up due to leverage? I don't think Gibson is going to be all that owned, but I mean, the Phillies are a good hitting team, right? I mean, Max Fried, if he starts walking people, could get into trouble, but typically, I think if you stack against Max Fried in the long run, you're not going to win. So where are we putting the Phillies and the Brewers?
I can see Philly on C tier maybe for the leverage, but Brewers I think have to be D at least.
Seems like you wouldn't be excited to play either team.
Not really, no. And honestly, I mean, I could see the case for moving Philly down a tier too, but Fried will probably be one of the higher owned guys. So, but if I'm doing the leverage thing, like I'd much rather do Seattle or Atlanta, I think.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about cheaper teams, right? Now we're going down another point. So like this, the difference between like the Yankees and like these teams are like 5 points in total, a double. That's it. That's the only difference. The Blue Jays and the Rays. So the Blue Jays against Nick Martinez, Tampa Bay Rays against Mitch Spence, and the Tigers against Jameson Taillon. These teams are cheap, and these are teams that you could easily stack and have a Flaherty, Fried, Flaherty, Cortez type of lineup. I think the Blue Jays are going to be over-owned today. But I'm not sure about the Tigers or the Rays. And you seem like you'd rather play Mitch Spence than play the Rays today.
Yeah, I can see the case for playing both. I mean, the Rays are plenty cheap enough, and it's not like Mitch Spence is anything great. You know, the case for Spence is really just roster construction and price more than anything else, and upside against a strikeout heavy Rays team. But it's a Rays team that can hit a little bit too. I mean, they're all at least D tier. I think you can make the case given prices for C for some of them maybe, but I wouldn't have them lower than D.
How about the Tigers?
Same deal with the Tigers. They're cheap enough. They project well enough where I can see C tier. I can see, definitely not lower than D.
Okay, so the last teams on the slate. Well, I mean, we got the Cubs against Bo Brisky, and most likely, the Tigers bullpen. The Guardians against Cortez, and the A's against Ryan Pepio. The Cubs are not cheap to stack. The Guardians are definitely not cheap to stack. The A's really aren't that cheap to stack either, although they're not as pricey as the other ones. I'm throwing right now, just by default, I'm just going to throw the Cubs, the Guardians, and the A's in the F tier. We're going to take two of these teams, put them not in the F tier. So we're one of these teams, since we have two A tier teams. Can you make a case for the Cubs, the Guardians, or the A's today? Outside of like Cortez will be somewhat owned, Pepio will be somewhat owned, but when I say somewhat owned, this is like 20%, right? Flaherty's 50%. Like the Fried is 20%. Everything else is kind of like 20% a pitcher. So can you make a case where you would not be crazy for playing one of these teams, like in your primary stack?
I'd have a hard time making that case. I think they're all F tier.
Well, are the Cubs a good enough hitting team? I mean, I know the wind's blowing in a little at Wrigley, and I know that matters. Are the Guardians that bad of a team? I mean, like the Guardians are a good hitting team, right?
They're fine, yeah.
They're fine, but yeah, they're playing in Yankee Stadium. The wind's blowing out a little, but do I want to play teams against Nestor Cortez? Probably not. Or the Yankees bullpen? Probably not. Throw me a bone here. You have to choose one of these teams to be in the D tier. Which one would they be?
I guess maybe it's the Cubs, just because we don't know who's coming in behind the opener just yet. I mean, we could see Maeda or some long man that just gets rocked. I mean, that's the case for the Cubs, I think.
And you're going to have to pay for it. I mean, I think the downside of the Cubs is that, like, they're the third worst projected team on the slate, and they're like, have a same point per dollar value as like cost is like the Reds and the Cardinal, like so many better teams in better matchups today. But so from the looks of the tiers, you're making one lineup, right? Doesn't matter that, just if I'm not talking about small field, but you're making one primary lineup to play today. It feels like, Carty, we're advocating that, if you want to take down first place in your contests, that we're fading Flaherty today as the top pitching play and playing like a Dodgers Mariners lineup with like cheap pit, like a freed Pepio, 8,500, 8,300, Seattle 5-man, and then you could play like two good Dodgers and then find some one-off from like a Brave or something like that. Like that type of lineup is that kind of, if we want to try to make all the money, we fade the Royals, we fade Flaherty, we hold our fingers together like this and just hope for it to be that it happens today.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Fade Royals, fade Flaherty, play some of those guys that are right below Flaherty, the Pepio, Nola, Freed kind of thing. Play some Mariners against Flaherty, play some Dodgers. Like I think that's the move today. If I have to do one thing.
Right. From a DFS perspective, the most probable thing is Flaherty plus Royals.
Yeah.
Like Flaherty plus Royals that's the chalk way. That is the most probable, but it may not be the most profitable. And remember, DFS is a game of what's the most profitable over the course of a season or multiple seasons rather than what's great today. So like I'd rather come in first or last with a non-Flaherty Mariners lineup than come in 68th place for 3x with a Royals plus Flaherty lineup and then having to find some 2% one-off that happens to hit 2 home runs. Good luck. Good luck to that. I mean, that's really what it boils down to, of like, which one do you want to eat all this ownership and then try to find some weird way of being different, or taking the easy leverage route of, even if you don't play the Mariners today, just simply fading Flaherty at 50% ownership could be, I mean, if he gets blown up enough and the Mariners still only put up 4 runs, but Flaherty's out in like 4 innings, walking 5 guys and giving up those 4 runs, like, yeah, the Mariners stack doesn't get there, but Flaherty doesn't either. So like Flaherty's in like the negative, and then half the lineups are dead to first place because he's 50% owned. Right? That's the game that we play. I know, Carty, you're more on the projection side. I'm more on the kind of the ownership side, but I think we both think pretty similarly.
Yeah, no, I mean, you always have to tailor your approach to the contest you're in. Like, yeah, I'm more of a projection optimal mindset, but if we're talking GPPs, this is the way to do it.
Right. So if you're playing cash games today, you're probably playing Bobby Wood and Jack Flaherty to lineup.
Yes, I would think so.
Are you gonna be on Crunch Time later today?
I don't think I'm on there tonight.
Okay, but you're on normally. A lot of times you're on. I never know. You pop in, you're there, whatever. But normally when you're on Crunch Time, you're like, here are the top players. Here's the top plays at every position, right? Here's the cash game if you're making double ups or whatever. And then, like Squirrel Patrol will be on and going, well, I'm playing this guy. And then you'd be like, yeah, you're crazy for playing that guy in cash. But yeah, obviously that guy shouldn't be 2% owned instead of, the other guy that's 30% owned. And that's the GPP.
I'll contribute to the GPP discussion on there as well sometimes. Like if I was on tonight, I would be hyping up the Mariners. I would.
Okay. Right. Because you're hyping up the teams that the bat projects kind of maybe differently than the rest of like the industry, or what, like normal human biases, right?
Mm-hmm.
Normal, and someone waking up today that doesn't use projections at all would look and go, why would I play the Mariners against Jack Flaherty, right? Like, they're obviously playing Jack Flaherty, right? Like they have no projections that say, hey, there's a much better spot than you think. It's a wide range of outcome spot, but the mean is just as high as like the Yankees, the Royals. And that's really that's the projection side of things, of when we say that the Royals, the Mariners, and the Yankees all project about the same today. That's a mean projection. So, Carty, but just a little math lesson before we get out of here is that, like, it's quite possible that 3 teams could have the same mean, but the range of outcomes could be wildly different because you're just looking at a mean number, right? I mean, we talk about this when it comes to like home run hitters, right? The Joey Gallo types, the strikeout or bust types, where like Rougned Odor, right? The classic bad example, or Chris Davis. If you go back a little further, where the guy projects for 8.5, and it's like, wow, that's pretty good. But it's like, well, he doesn't have any 8.5s in his range of outcomes. It's his set looks like 0, 0, 0, 14, 20, 3, 0, 0, 0, 14, whatever. So, like, when it comes to the Royals, Mariners, and Yankees, to say that the Mariners project the same as the Royals and the Yankees is kind of a misnomer. It's more that the Royals and the Yankees have many more outcomes near their mean than the Mariners, but the Mariners have enough ceiling outcomes compared to their like 0 outcomes that the mean ends up being the same as those 2 other teams.
Yeah, exactly.
And if people want to ask you questions about the projections, they could do so in the RotoGrinders Discord. Yeah,
absolutely. You can DM me on Twitter. You can, tag me or DM me on Discord. I'm always happy to answer any questions.
Right. And if you're a BAT or a Blitz subscriber, you get the Discord channels, and you're always active in those channels. I mean, you're typically in the BAT, typically answering when the loop is down. And
which is not often. Not
right,
often.
not anymore. I'm making fun of you. Early in the season, where is the loop down is the number one frequently asked question in the BAT chat. But the Blitz chat is open, and yeah, I mean, if you want to get into football and NFL, go join and get the Blitz today for a severely discounted price. That take it while Carty is I don't know, hopped up on hallucinogenics for the past couple of years before he finally comes to his senses. So take advantage of that, as well as the BAT. You could get the remaining season, as well as till next year, and on August 21st, you go to rotogrinders.com/the-bat or the-blitz. So thanks for coming on to talk about tonight's 8-game MLB DFS slate. Tune into Grinders Live. They'll go into more detail. Crunch time's at 6:15 Eastern on the channel. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here, and hit the notification bell to always know when we go live. I'll be back tomorrow with Will. Tomorrow we'll be talking about the early slate, because the early slate is like the main slate. So me and Will will be talking about that. Then Friday, some MMA discussion for a very small DFS card. So it's strategically maybe a weird one on Friday, but I'll be back then talking about all things you're thinking about in daily fantasy props and pick'em on RotoGrinders Today.